begun yesterday's news.
Yesterday's News is the new album from Robert Ellis, an up-close and personal collection of songs recorded in just 2 days. Here's Robert talking about his new album and his first ever record.
I fell in love with records when I was really young because my grandfather had a record player, and he kind of was my father figure, and I used to sit and tinker with it. And actually, what's really interesting is it was this little console record player and cassette player. And
Oh, yeah.
He had all these records, like this one Ray Stevens record that had some kind of funny kids songs. Like there was a song called Guitar Zan.
I bought Guitar Zan when it came out. I have the 45.
Get it. Guitar Zan, he's a guitar man. He's all you can stand. Give him a hand, Guitar Zan.
My grandfather had that on vinyl, and really young, before I can even really remember it, I was using the record function on the cassette thing. I'd put a cassette in there, and I would record the vinyl.
Right.
And I was going through a bunch of stuff that was just at my parents' house in the attic, and I had this thing of cassettes. And I have a truck now, like an older truck that has a cassette player in it. So I've been listening to quite a few cassettes because it's the only thing in the truck. And I popped this unlabeled cassette in, and instantly I was transported back to being, I think, 4 or 5 years old. And it was Ray Stevens, and I could hear myself stopping it in the middle of the song, starting another song, like experimenting with recording this cassette.
Right.
So cool.
I love it.
Yeah.
Guitar Zan, that's a classic. Yep.
Yeah. Wild stuff. That brought me, I hadn't heard that since I was a kid. And It just all came flooding back. And I was like, how do I still remember all of this?
Yep. It's when it's in there, it stays there.
Yeah.
Very good. So whereabouts are you today?
I'm in Fort Worth. And I'm in my little back office behind my house and getting ready to go play a jazz gig in town, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to go play. Somebody asked me to play drums, so I'm going to sit down on drums tonight and just have some fun. And then tomorrow I've got to go to Austin for a gig in Austin and just kind of kicking around.
Cool. Because I see that it's kind of, the new album is kind of referenced slightly as folk jazz in some respects. Is that accurate, would you say?
I mean, I definitely think the changes are not super pedestrian, like the chord changes in a lot of the songs look more like a Parker tune than they do like a Buck Owens tune, like there's not a lot of 1-4-5s on the record, but I've kind of always had an affinity for that stuff. I kind of like weird changes and cool journeys, harmonically. So but this one aesthetically, there was a record, a Chet Baker record, that I've seen under different names, but most recently I've seen it titled Embraceable You.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just him, a nylon string guitar, and that's the whole record. He's playing trumpet and singing, and then this guitar player is playing with him. Yeah. And it's one of my favorite records of all time. And a lot of these tunes, when I was writing them, I just was thinking about that record and the way they present these ballads and the way the guitar player sort of voices things. And I think maybe aesthetically there's a lot more jazz direct influence on this one than some of the others,
Right. Very cool. So the new record is Yesterday's News. Mm-hmm. And from what I also read, it was recorded live to tape in 2 days. Is that also accurate?
It is true. Yes.
Why and how did you do that?
So we have a recording studio here in town in Fort Worth. It's called Nile City. And I produce a bunch of music for other bands, and that's what I've mostly been occupied with over the last few years. And that's sort of what we pride ourselves on doing. Like that's what our room is built for, and that's kind of where our skill set, I think, really comes into focus. Is we really like to capture performances, so we don't do a lot of multi-tracking. We don't even have any ISO booths in our studio, so it's a bit difficult to get isolation. And that's kind of by design. It's this big live room that looks a lot like old studios where they tracked full bands playing live together and singing. And so that's a part of it. We've been doing that a lot for other people. And then I've always through all my records, live performances are at the core of everything. Like at minimum, every record that I've done, the bass, drums, and one other element have been tracked together live. Like I just am not convinced that multi-tracking yields a musical or effective performance.
Right.
I do think you have a lot more control and you can make things more refined, but I don't think it's possible to make it feel the same way.
Right.
You know, to have the same sort of momentum. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but and then also this record, you know, it's all just me on guitar and an upright player. So it's very simple, and it sort of was like, why not just do it? And the only reason it took two days is because it took 2 days.
Fair enough. That's
Had it
the right
taken
answer.
longer or shorter, it would have. Yeah.
Nice. So there's 9 songs that comprise the record.
Yeah.
How do they hang? What keeps them together and makes them a record in your mind?
Well, I recorded close to 15, and I brought it down to like 11, and then after a couple months of reflection, brought it down to 9. So, and most of it for me was not so much the, you know, quality of the songs, you know, or the potential of the songs. It was all about tone. Like I wanted to really focus on stuff with a consistent tonal center, you know, that just sort of had the same energy and vibe. And all of these songs, I don't know, the best way that I can explain it is there's nothing really exciting that happens. Like, there's nothing really like, if you were falling asleep listening to this record, I wanted it to be such that there would be nothing that would wake you up out of,
jolt you out of your sleep.
jolt you out of, yeah, like, I don't want any fancy tricks or like, you know, like wow moments. And I kind of wanted everything dynamically to be sort of, you know, at a certain level. And the way that I contextualized it when we started recording was like, okay, normally music goes from like here to here. I want to just lower that whole shelf so that like our quiet moments are so much quieter than we would ever normally play. And then our loudest moment is really not that loud.
Yep.
You know, like.
Yep. Yeah. So it's got a very intimate, sparse feel to it, especially your vocals in your singing. So I'm wondering, because I've seen you live and I know that you play with a band and you can rock out with the best of them if you want to. So vocally, in general, did you have to think or approach your singing differently when you were singing these songs?
I mean, I have a lot more control at a quieter volume,
right?
You know, like, and so in some ways it's a lot easier, and you can focus on things like tonal quality, you know, in a different kind of way than when you're singing over a band. But also part of it was just, like you said, the recording. Like, in order for it to be captured the way that we wanted it to be captured, we had to have the microphones fairly hot and fairly loud. And that meant that you couldn't really blow them up. Like, you had to keep everything under a certain volume for them to be captured in the right way. And you had to really make sure you were consistently sort of at the right distance from the microphone and really think about just the physical space in the room in a different sort of way, because every little movement would create a disparity, you know, like between what the song before was. So that was a unique challenge. But yeah, overall, I just, it was what the songs called for. And for better or worse, like all my records, I feel like I do these rounds of press stuff where I put out a record and then I talk to a bunch of people, and consistently every time, every single record, people always say, this record's kind of a departure from your last record. Like, that's always the narrative. But, you know, zooming out after, I don't know, 8 albums or whatever, you know, 5 solo albums and a bunch of side projects, and then I don't know how many just other ones I produced for other people, but like, I just get interested in all of the different things that music can do, you know, and at different times, I'm excited about a different facet of it. So it's less for me like, I want to take a left turn in my career, and it's more just like, this record for me, it was really exciting to focus on really small details and to focus on just subtle changes that mean a lot.
Right.
Instead of broad strokes, you know, it's just like different kinds of painting, you know, expressionist versus surrealist versus, you know, what's it called when they paint a million little dots? Penialism or what is it?
Pixelation or pixelism
Yeah,
or something like that.
yeah. But you know what I mean. Like you can find so many things about music that are exciting, and you
Yeah.
can focus on any one of them and be like, wow, that's cool. If I lean into that,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm doing, then
Yep.
there's this whole world that opens up that you didn't experience before. You know.
Yep. Well, one of the details I liked was in On the Run, you're singing about stretches of West Texas that don't even have a name.
There are stretches of West Texas that don't even have a name. We stopped and took the chance to gas up every time it came. The scorching smell of summer vapor rising from the road, strapped into a fuselage and waiting to explode.
From, I would say, for about 6 hours in the car, you will, I mean, really, once you pass San Antonio, maybe a little further, going from there to El Paso is the desert. It's, you know, it's just, it's insane. And the lines in that song, I definitely was picturing someone driving in West Texas. There is this stretch of road where if you don't stop for gas, and I've known so many people who do not heed my advice on this, but if you don't stop for gas, and I'm sure, like, probably not so much New Zealand, but definitely Australia, like, there are places where you just will be fucked. There's no way that you will get gas. You know what I mean? Like, and so that's very much the way Texas is. Like pretty much half the state is like that. And the landscape just has a very particular feel and look and just tone. All of it tonally is just, it's one of my favorite places on earth. And I don't know if you know the artist Donald Judd. Are you familiar with his work?
No.
He did a really famous and exceptional artist who ended up living in Marfa, Texas. New York artist who moved down to Marfa.
I've heard of Marfa quite a bit. It's
and Donald
quite
Judd
the
made
hipster
these
hangout.
yeah, totally. It's only the hipster hangout because I think in the 70s or maybe even earlier, Donald Judd moved out to Marfa and decided to put his art studio there. And he also built these massive installations that are large form sculpture. And the West Texas landscape is a part of his pieces. You know, he builds these structures that they look so interestingly appropriate for the landscape and yet out of place. Like, I don't know, he just does interesting things. And I don't know, that's something I think about a lot. I look to visual art a lot to just, I don't know, think about how music could be different, you know, like what sort of context am I putting on a theme that everyone thinks they know? Or like, you know, if that song in particular is a dark folk song about a desert, which is not new. It's been done a million times.
Done before,
like, you know, what can be different about it? And I don't know, for that song in particular, I mean, all the lyrics in that song to me are not about a road trip in West Texas. It's, you know, it's purely existential. You know, like that's just a metaphor for living your life in a way that is not focused on the present. That's what that song is about for me.
Gotcha. And it's followed on the record. It's followed by the title track, "Yesterday's News," which you've made a video, and your partner Erica is the one that kind of put it together for you. That must be an interesting project because it's very kind of autobiographical and very personal. It seems like.
I gave it a go, and shot for the moon. The only way that I know, too little, too soon.
It's really interesting. We shot that video over the course of 6 years and various tours. There's footage all over the world. I shot footage in New Zealand, Australia, Japan, all over Europe, all over the United States. Like, it's just, the scope of it is enormous. And originally, me and her had intended to make a short film that was going to be like a narrative short film concept. And, you know, a million things happened. We got busy and we finished it, and we also weren't super excited about it. So we just put those hard drives in the drawer. And when it came time to make the video for this song, Erica just had the brilliant idea. She was like, why don't I look back through some of that footage that we shot while you were on tour and see if I can put something together. And the first rough cut I saw, I was just like, oh my God, it's my favorite video I've ever made. You know, like if I had planned it, it would have never been as good as it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was an accident. All of it was just a fucking accident. So
well, there's something to be said for just allowing things to happen, and accidents sometimes make the best art.
Yeah, it turns out the universe is pretty intelligent.
You just have to be receptive to it and not have.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't force it and control it all the time, you know?
Yeah. Yep. That's cool. And I see you have two versions of a song called Wait. There's Wait, and then there's a reprise. They're both identically in lengthwise, a little different otherwise. Why is that?
Well, one of them is an instrumental, and it's just sort of a reflection on the first tune. The reason that I titled them the same is they were written around the same time, and they share sort of a melodic theme.
Yeah.
They're in different keys, but they have there's something similar about the melody to them. And I think about it like if it was a movie score, you know, one would be for the main title credit and one would be for a different part in the movie, you know,
gotcha. Yeah.
Would be related. And really, like, that song, as it took shape, it was really important to me that there was like this long breath afterwards where you didn't hear any more information. You didn't hear any more words, you know, and you could just sort of live in the feeling of whatever that was for another 3 minutes. Right.
You can hear bird song in there though.
Yeah.
Was that happening in the real time?
No, that's something that we added, but yeah, it's pretty cool. That's one of my favorite moments on the record. And I don't even really know what that song is totally about. Right. That's one of those interesting things where I really liked the way it sounded and felt, and I was like, this is good, and I moved on, you know?
Yep. So the record's out on May 19th. What are your plans for the day, and are you going on tour?
I have pretty extensive American dates. I have some European dates, and then we're planning New Zealand, Australia before the end of the year. I'm hoping it happens. I'm thinking maybe November, December, but I'll keep you posted. It's definitely going to happen.
Right. All righty. So I'm curious, because this album feels so intimate, especially the vocals, do you have a favorite vocal performance of yours on the record?
Oh, I don't know.
I know it's a tough one.
Yeah, it's hard to separate the guitar and the vocals. I mean, my favorite song on the record is probably the very last one.
Okay.
For a number of reasons. Yeah, I mean, it's so simple. There's so few chords, and it's just plodding. It's unbelievably slow. It's like the slowest song on the record. And there's just something about it that I really like. When I listen to it as a listener and not as the writer, I just really like the tone of it a lot.
Right.
And I like the words. I think that it was important to me that for such a complicated record that has, you know, a lot of conflict and is at times a little fatalistic.
Right.
Ending on the note, you know, it's a song sort of to my child, but the main point in the song is just like, no matter what's going on, no matter how bad it is, you learn this lesson as you get older that I could just go to sleep. And if I go to sleep right now, I'll probably feel better tomorrow when I wake up.
Right.
You know, like, that was a really hard lesson for me to learn. Like, it's something that I don't think young people understand, that time, you hear these cliches about like time heals all wounds and blah, blah, blah. But it really is as simple as just like, if I have anxiety right now, if I feel sad right now, just let a little time pass, really go to sleep and wake up the next day and things will probably look different.
Yep. Good words to live by. Very good. Well, hopefully we'll see you down here again soon then. It sounds like you're planning on it.
So,
yeah, it'd be very cool. The Tuning Fork or wherever it is that you end up. Yeah, excellent.
I'll definitely come back by and let's listen to some records.
Absolutely. I got a few you might like. We can play Guitarzan.
Oh, awesome.
All righty. Very good. I'll let you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck with everything.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.